In a world where most people walk past loose change without a second thought, one tiny coin could quietly be worth more than a brand new luxury car. Right now, somewhere in an old coin jar, a forgotten drawer, a dusty attic, or even mixed into everyday pocket change, there could be a 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny without a mint mark waiting to be discovered. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. But under the right conditions, it can become one of the most exciting coins a collector could ever find. Before you dismiss that old penny as just another piece of copper, stay with me because today you'll learn exactly why this coin has captured the attention of collectors around the world and what details separate an everyday penny from one that could be worth an astonishing amount of money. The year 1942 was unlike any other. The United States was deeply involved in World War II, and the nation's resources were focused on supporting the war effort. The Philadelphia Mint continued producing millions of Lincoln Wheat Pennies, but with enormous pressure placed on production, some dies developed unusual characteristics as they wore down. Those tiny imperfections created varieties that decades later became highly desirable among serious collectors. The first thing to know is that a Philadelphia coin from 1942 carries no mint mark beneath the date. That's completely normal. What makes certain examples valuable isn't the missing mint mark itself, but the rare varieties, striking errors, and exceptional condition that only a small number of coins possess. Imagine finding an old 1942 penny in a family collection. At first glance it seems completely ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's portrait looks familiar, and the wheat ears on the reverse appear just like countless other pennies. But under magnification, something catches your eye. The letters seem slightly doubled. The date looks unusually bold. Suddenly that ordinary coin becomes something worth investigating. One of the most talked about varieties involves doubling on the obverse. Carefully examine the word liberty and the date. On valuable examples, the doubling appears as distinct separation rather than blurry damage or wear. True doubling was created during the die-making process, making it highly desirable to specialists. Turn the coin over and inspect every detail on the reverse. Look closely at the lettering, especially E pluribus unum and 1 cent. While dramatic reverse varieties are less common, die cracks, die chips, and other striking anomalies can increase collector interest depending on their visibility and rarity. Condition plays an enormous role in determining value. Two identical varieties can sell for dramatically different prices simply because one coin has been preserved better than the other. Coins with strong original detail, minimal wear, and bright natural copper surfaces usually attract the highest premiums. Collectors often describe these coins as brown, red-brown, or full red, with original red examples generally commanding the strongest prices when they survive in outstanding condition. Many people believe every old penny is valuable simply because it's old, but that's not how coin collecting works. Age alone doesn't create rarity. Instead, collectors look for the perfect combination of scarcity, eye appeal, preservation, and unusual characteristics. That's why one 1942 penny might only be worth a small premium while another could attract intense bidding at auction. If you're checking your own coins, use a quality 10x magnifying loupe and examine every detail carefully. Good lighting is just as important as magnification. Rotate the coin slowly and compare each letter and number for signs of genuine doubling. Be patient because the smallest details often make the biggest difference. Another mistake many beginners make is cleaning their coins. It might seem like a good idea to make an old penny shine, but cleaning almost always reduces collector value. Even if a coin appears dirty or dark, leave it exactly as you found it until you know what you have. Original surfaces are far more desirable than polished ones. One reason collectors love Lincoln Wheat Pennies is that exciting discoveries still happen today. Estate collections are uncovered, old bankrolls are opened, forgotten albums resurface, and inherited jars of coins continue producing surprising finds. Every year people discover coins they never realized had collector value. Professional grading can also make a significant difference for important coins. If your 1942 penny shows unusual doubling or appears to be in exceptional condition, having it authenticated by a respected grading service can confirm exactly what you found and provide confidence to future buyers. Some of the strongest auction prices for exceptional 1942 Lincoln Wheat Pennies have come from coins with remarkable preservation, eye appeal, and recognized varieties. While not every example reaches extraordinary values, the finest known pieces continue attracting serious collectors willing to compete for the best survivors. Perhaps the most exciting part is that you don't need expensive equipment or years of experience to begin searching. All it takes is curiosity, careful observation, and a willingness to inspect coins that most people ignore every single day. Every old penny deserves a closer look because once in a while, an ordinary-looking coin reveals something extraordinary. The next time you empty your pockets, sort through an old coin jar, or inherit a small collection from a family member, don't rush. Take your time. Look closely at every 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny without a mint mark. Check the date. Study the lettering. Examine both sides under magnification. You never know when one tiny detail could transform a 1-cent coin into the highlight of an entire collection. History has shown that remarkable treasures often hide in the most ordinary places. That's exactly what keeps collectors searching year after year. Somewhere, another valuable 1942 Philadelphia Lincoln Wheat Penny is still waiting to be recognized. The only question is whether the next person to discover it will be you. Have you ever picked up an old penny without giving it a second thought? What if I told you that one small coin from 1944 could be hiding a story of war, survival, and incredible value? Before you spend another minute ignoring that old jar of coins sitting in your home, stay with me until the end because what you are about to learn could completely change the way you look at every Lincoln Wheat Penny you find. Let's travel back to 1944. The world was still in the middle of World War II, and nearly every important material was being directed toward the war effort. Copper was one of the most valuable resources because it was needed for military equipment, ammunition, and communication systems. After the steel pennies of 1943, the United States Mint returned to making pennies from recycled brass recovered from used military shell casings. That means every genuine 1944 penny carries a remarkable connection to one of the most important moments in history. Now comes the detail that many people completely overlook. Look carefully beneath the date on your 1944 penny. If there is no letter at all, you have a Philadelphia issue. If you see AD, it was struck in Denver. If you see an S, it came from San Francisco. That tiny empty space has caused countless collectors to stop and take a closer look. At first glance, a 1944 penny with no mint mark may not seem rare. Millions were produced, and many still exist today. But the real story begins when condition enters the picture. Most examples spent decades in circulation, passing through thousands of hands, becoming scratched, worn, and dark brown. Those pieces usually carry only modest value. But every now and then, a completely different coin appears. Imagine finding a 1944 penny that still shines with its original bright red color, almost as if it had just left the mint yesterday. Coins like that are becoming harder to find every single year. Collectors search for them because original color, strong luster, and untouched surfaces are incredibly difficult to preserve after more than 80 years. Then there are the era coins, and this is where things become truly exciting. During busy production, mistakes occasionally happened. Some coins show noticeable doubling in the date or lettering. Others display die cracks, die chips, or other unusual minting errors that make them stand out from ordinary examples. These small differences can turn an otherwise common penny into a coin that collectors compete to own. That is why experienced collectors never judge a coin by its date alone. They examine every detail. They study the lettering, the surfaces, the color, and even tiny imperfections that most people would never notice. Sometimes the smallest feature is the one that makes the biggest difference. Think about where these pennies have been. They were carried during the final years of World War II. They bought groceries, newspapers, and everyday necessities as America entered a new era. Every circulated coin has witnessed decades of history. Every scratch tells part of that journey. And if one escaped circulation altogether, it becomes a remarkable survivor from another generation. So how much could one be worth? A heavily circulated brown example may only be worth a small premium over face value. Better preserved pieces often attract much stronger interest from collectors. Bright red uncirculated examples certified in high mint state grades can reach hundreds or even thousands of dollars, while exceptional specimens with rare characteristics have achieved impressive auction prices. Before you assume your coin is ordinary, take a few moments to inspect it carefully. Look for original red color. Check for unusual doubling in the date, the word liberty, and "In God we trust." Examine the surfaces for signs of wear. One careful inspection could reveal something that has gone unnoticed for decades. The hunt is what keeps collectors coming back year after year. Treasure is not always hidden deep underground. Sometimes it waits quietly inside an old family collection, a forgotten coin album, or a jar of spare change sitting on a shelf. The next remarkable discovery could belong to someone who simply decided to look a little closer. If you enjoy uncovering the hidden stories behind America's most fascinating coins, make sure you stay with this channel because there are many more incredible discoveries waiting to be explored. Share this video with someone who keeps old coins, and let us know in the comments if you have ever found a wheat penny in your own collection. You never know, the next coin you examine could be the one everyone else overlooked. The year is 1952. America is changing fast. Factories run day and night, millions of coins pour out of the Philadelphia Mint, and every Lincoln cent looks almost identical. At least, that's what everyone believed. Hidden among hundreds of millions of ordinary pennies, one tiny copper coin left the press carrying a chain of mistakes so unusual that decades later collectors would fight to own it for hundreds of thousands of dollars. No one noticed it at first. The penny passed through grocery stores, gas stations, lunch counters, and children's piggy banks just like every other cent. It was spent, forgotten, and eventually tucked away inside an old collection where it remained unnoticed for years. To almost everyone, it was simply another worn 1952 Lincoln cent. Everything changed when an experienced collector examined the coin under magnification. At first glance, nothing seemed extraordinary. Lincoln's portrait looked normal. The date was clear. There was no obvious damage. But the longer he studied the coin, the more unusual details appeared. The surfaces reflected light differently, the strike looked slightly incomplete, and the coin felt just a little lighter than expected. Curious, he weighed it. Instead of the standard weight, the coin came in noticeably under specification. That tiny difference suggested something had gone wrong before the coin was ever struck. The blank planchet itself had not been manufactured correctly. Every Lincoln cent begins life as a perfectly measured metal blank. Those blanks must meet strict standards for weight, thickness, and composition. If one is even slightly thinner than normal, the striking pressure changes. The metal cannot completely fill every part of the design, leaving subtle softness in the lettering and portrait that trained collectors can recognize. This 1952 cent displayed exactly those characteristics. Its rims were slightly weaker. Lincoln's hair lacked the sharpness normally expected. The lettering appeared just a little softer than it should have been. None of these differences were dramatic on their own, but together they pointed toward an authentic mint production error rather than ordinary wear. Then another mystery appeared. Specialized testing suggested the metal composition differed slightly from standard production. During the early 1950s, the Mint continually monitored and adjusted manufacturing processes. While nearly every cent contained the familiar copper alloy, this coin appeared to have an unusual metal balance that affected both its appearance and its weight. Instead of the rich reddish tone expected from most Lincoln cents, this example showed a faint golden tint under bright light. Experienced collectors immediately noticed the difference, even if casual observers could not. The unusual alloy also changed the way the metal reacted during striking. Harder metal doesn't flow into every corner of the dies as easily, producing even more subtle differences throughout the design. But the surprises were only beginning. Under magnification, experts discovered faint marks that should never appear on a properly struck coin. These were evidence of a die clash. A die clash occurs when the upper and lower dies strike each other without a blank planchet between them. When that happens, tiny portions of each design can transfer onto the opposite die. Later coins struck from those damaged dies may carry ghost-like impressions that were never meant to exist. On this penny, faint traces of those clash marks could be seen around Lincoln's portrait. To ordinary people, they looked like tiny imperfections. To collectors, they were fascinating evidence of the mint's production process. Then came an even more valuable discovery. Several letters and parts of the date showed clear doubling. This was not machine doubling caused after striking. Instead, it appeared to be genuine double die doubling created during die manufacturing itself. When the working die receives a slightly misaligned impression during production, every coin struck from that die carries the same double design. Collectors prize these errors because they originate before the coin is even struck. On this 1952 cent, the doubling could be seen in multiple design elements, making it one of the most desirable features on the coin. As remarkable as that was, one final surprise remained. Running across part of the design was a narrow recessed area unlike ordinary damage. Careful examination suggested the coin had been struck through a small foreign object trapped between the die and the planchet during production. For a split second, something interrupted the strike. When the press came down with tremendous force, the object prevented the metal from filling that tiny section of the design. Once the object disappeared, the unusual impression remained permanently frozen into the coin. Strike-through errors are exceptionally difficult to duplicate because everything must happen within a single strike of the press. The object must appear at exactly the wrong moment and disappear immediately afterward. That tiny accident created one more layer of rarity. By itself, each of these mint errors would attract serious collector interest. An underweight planchet. An unusual alloy. A die clash. A double die. A strike-through error. Finding any one of them on a Lincoln cent would be exciting. Finding all of them together on a single coin borders on unbelievable. That combination transformed an ordinary 1-cent coin into something entirely different. Instead of representing pocket change, it became a unique record of multiple manufacturing mistakes occurring at exactly the right moments inside one of the busiest mints in the world. Years passed before the coin finally reached professional authentication. Experts carefully examined every detail, verified the mint errors, confirmed its authenticity, and assigned it an official grade. Once collectors learned about the coin, interest exploded. When it finally crossed the auction block, bidding climbed far beyond anyone's expectations. The numbers rose rapidly as determined collectors competed for ownership of a coin they knew they might never see again. The final hammer price stunned everyone in the room. Its incredible journey proved something every coin collector understands. Sometimes the smallest mistakes create the greatest treasures. A tiny manufacturing flaw lasting less than a second can survive for generations, turning an ordinary piece of pocket change into a historic collectible worth more than cars. And somewhere today. Imagine a single Lincoln penny leaving the mint, looking no different from millions of others. It passes from hand to hand, spends years in circulation, and eventually disappears into an old jar or forgotten drawer. Decades later, collectors discover that this ordinary-looking coin is anything but ordinary. Today we're talking about the 1946 Lincoln cent with no mint mark, a coin that has fascinated collectors for generations because of its rare combination of unusual mint characteristics and remarkable preservation. Some outstanding examples have brought astonishing prices at major auctions, proving that even the smallest coin can hide an incredible story. The year was 1946. America was recovering from World War II. Factories were shifting back to civilian production, and the United States Mint was returning to normal operations after years of intense demand. Millions of Lincoln cents were struck in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Philadelphia coins did not carry a mint mark that year, making them appear completely ordinary to the average person. Yet a tiny number of cents produced during this period displayed striking features that would later capture the attention of serious collectors. One of the most desirable characteristics found on certain 1946 cents is dramatic die cracking. As a die ages, enormous pressure can cause small fractures to develop across its surface. Every coin struck afterward carries raised lines where the metal fills those cracks. Some examples show thin lines, while others display bold cracks stretching across Lincoln's portrait and the reverse design. These late-stage die cracks are prized because they reveal the final life of the die before it was retired. Another feature collectors search for is doubling in the lettering. On carefully examined coins, parts of the inscriptions may appear slightly doubled due to imperfections created during die production. Under magnification, the separation can often be seen on letters and numbers, making these pieces much more desirable than ordinary examples. True hub doubling is very different from machine doubling and requires close examination by experienced collectors. Some 1946 cents also exhibit impressive die chips and cuds. These occur when a portion of the die breaks away, leaving a raised blob of metal on every coin struck afterward. Large cuds along the rim are especially dramatic because they partially cover the design while creating a bold raised area that cannot be mistaken for post-mint damage. These spectacular mint-made features have become favorites among era collectors. Occasionally, blank planchets entered the striking chamber with unusual defects before they were ever struck. A clipped planchet is one example. During the blanking process, the punch overlaps a previous hole in the metal strip, leaving a crescent-shaped section missing from the blank. Once struck, the finished coin shows a distinctive curved clip that experts can identify by the weakness opposite the missing section, a characteristic known among collectors as the Blakesley effect. Another fascinating possibility involves strike-through errors. Tiny fragments of grease, metal shavings, or other debris sometimes become trapped between the die and the planchet. Instead of damaging the coin afterward, these objects actually become part of the striking process, leaving unusual recessed areas or missing design elements. Since every obstruction is different, no two strike-through errors are exactly alike. Misaligned strikes also create exciting discoveries. If a planchet is not perfectly centered when struck, part of the design may be missing while the remaining details stay sharp. In more dramatic cases, the retaining collar fails to hold the coin properly, allowing the metal to spread outward during the strike. These broad strikes have an unmistakable appearance and immediately stand out from normal coins. Condition plays an enormous role in determining value. Most 1946 pennies spent decades in circulation, collecting scratches, wear, and discoloration. However, a small number survived in exceptional mint condition with brilliant original surfaces and sharp details. Coins certified in the highest grades by professional grading services often command prices many times greater than average circulated examples because collectors compete intensely for the finest known pieces. Authentication is equally important. Many damaged coins are mistakenly advertised as rare errors, but genuine mint errors display specific characteristics that specialists can verify. Raised die cracks, authentic hub doubling, original mint luster, and proper metal flow all help experts separate real treasures from altered coins. Professional certification provides confidence for both buyers and sellers. Collectors continue searching through old collections, inherited jars of pennies, and forgotten coin albums because remarkable discoveries still happen. A coin that appears ordinary at first glance may reveal unusual die varieties, striking errors, or outstanding preservation after careful inspection. That possibility keeps the excitement alive for every collector who examines a handful of old Lincoln cents. The 1946 Lincoln cent remains one of the most fascinating coins from the post-war era, not because every example is valuable, but because the year produced a variety of interesting mint-made characteristics that continue to attract attention decades later. Whether it's a dramatic die crack, a bold cud, a clipped planchet, a strike-through, or an exceptionally preserved example, each discovery tells a small part of the story of American coin production during an important moment in history. So before you overlook another old penny, take a closer look. The next coin you examine could reveal a feature that most people would never notice. If you enjoy discovering hidden stories behind rare coins and valuable Lincoln cents, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.